Reaching north from the English border, Scotland is a nation that is full of history. The Highland feuds and battles, great Celtic warriors and their clans. It is also a nation of great beauty. Wooded glens, valleys, mountains, and the deep, silent, and mysterious lochs lie scattered about this untamed country of the north. Bagpipes, the sound of Scotland, striking fear into the hearts of the warring clans and all those who opposed them. Their association with Scotland is legendary, but it was until recently an instrument played only in the Highlands. It was during the 16th century that bagpipe music became popular throughout Scotland, and during this century most towns would have employed a town piper. But with the collapse of the Highland clan system following the Jacobite uprising of 1745, many of the traditional forms of Highland music disappeared altogether. Bagpipe music might have suffered a similar fate, but for the fact that it was adopted by the military. As well as the music, the occasion also provides an opportunity to admire the famous Scottish kilts. Like bagpipe music, the kilt also originated in the Highlands. Each clan had their own unique form of tartan by which they could be identified. The kilt did not filter down to the rest of Scotland until the 17th century. Prior to this, the Lowlanders were very scathing about the kilt, saying, "The common habit of the Highlander is far from being acceptable to the eye." In about 700 BC, the first Celts began to arrive from Europe. 600 years later, the Romans invaded Britain, but never managed to conquer Scotland. It was during the Middle Ages, while Edward I was on the English throne, that some of Scotland's more famous historical events took place. On the death of the Scottish king and his heir, Edward of England took it upon himself to act as king of both England and Scotland. William Wallace, a common Highlander, waged war against the English, enjoying a great victory at Stirling Bridge. His role was adopted by another Scottish hero, Robert the Bruce. Bruce was a Scottish nobleman dissatisfied with the subservience of the Scottish nobles to the English, and continued Wallace's harassment of the English. He was, in fact, very successful, capturing several castles before enjoying a glorious victory against the English at Bannockburn. Towards the middle of the 16th century, another famous Scottish figure was to ascend the throne, Mary, Queen of Scots. Despite her fame, Mary did not have the qualities to rule Scotland successfully, and she was finally executed by Elizabeth I. Throughout the 18th century, the rebellious Scottish spirit began to surface once again. This was to lead to the uprising of 1745. Led by Bonnie Prince Charlie, this was another attempt to gain Scottish independence, but this one was to have disastrous effects. The eventual outcome of the uprising was the complete devastation of the Highlanders. Many were murdered or shipped away to become slaves. Their castles were destroyed and their cattle were slaughtered in this brutal attempt to destroy the Highland clan system. Perched atop a cliff above the rocky shores of the Isle of Mull, there stands Duart Castle. In many ways, Duart Castle is the archetypal Highland castle, with its history of clan warfare and its eventual destruction after the Jacobite uprising of 1745. Duart has been the home of the Clan MacLean, a typical Highland clan, since the 13th century. The MacLeans are sworn enemies of the Campbell clan, and the bitter feud between the two families is legendary. Sir Fitzroy MacLean, 26th chief of the clan, visited the castle as a boy, while it was still just a ruined shell, and vowed to restore it to its former glory. In 1911 he finally achieved his ambition, and in the summer of 1912 held a huge gathering of the clan to celebrate the restoration of the castle. On his deathbed, Sir Fitzroy MacLean requested that when his time came, he be buried facing the castle he loved. His family honoured his dying wishes. Standing in a lonely graveyard on the Isle of Mull shoreline is Sir Fitzroy's tombstone, staring out across the water at his beloved Duart Castle. Dating from the 14th century, this castle was the home of the Campbell clan, who had been at war with the MacLeans of Duart Castle for so long. It was Sir John Campbell's sister who married Lachlan MacLean, and Sir John who murdered Lachlan in revenge. According to legend, when the first Thane of Cawdor decided to build a castle, he took the advice of a holy man. He was instructed to load bags of gold onto the back of a donkey, and where the donkey lay down to rest, he was to build his castle. The donkey rested beneath a holly tree, a symbol of luck and prosperity, and Cawdor Castle was built around it. The actual tree remains in the castle today. Another unusual feature of the castle is its interior. The living room is filled with modern furniture. The walls hung with a combination of old family portraits. The reason behind this is that the castle is actually lived in for much of the year by Lady Cawdor, who still spends 6 months of the year here, and even sleeps in the huge 4-poster bed topped with curled ostrich feathers. These feathers are made by 2 old ladies in the Rue des Beaux-Arts in Paris. These ladies specialize in the art of curling ostrich feathers. Them for the Folies Bergère. The tapestries hung on the walls are Flemish. Known as arras hangings, they were used not only for decoration, but for warmth too. To many people, this castle would be familiar as the home of the ill-fated Thane of Cawdor in Shakespeare's Macbeth. while Macbeth was only a fictitious story and had nothing to do with the actual castle itself. The story surrounding the beginnings of the castle is one Shakespeare himself would have been proud of. Abbotsford is the remarkable home of a truly remarkable man, Sir Walter Scott, the author of such works as Rob Roy and The Lady of the Lake. Abbotsford House was Scott's pride and joy, and as he achieved success through his writing, he lavished time and money on his beloved home. When Scott was young, he was sent to his grandfather's to recover from a bad leg injury. It is generally considered that it was during this time recuperating his imagination became full of tales of brutal Celtic battles, heroes, and feuds. This inspiration set the future tone of some of his most popular novels. In his study at Abbotsford, Scott would work from 5 in the morning until 9 at night. It was here he was to produce such fine works as the Waverley novels. However, his publishing company, in which he was a partner, ran into financial difficulties. Scott was determined to repay his debts. He is quoted as saying, "I will dig in the mine of my imagination to find diamonds to make good my indebtedness."